Alright here, my loves, today we're going to talk about how to speak like a drunken Jack Sparrow. I love my British Cockney, but today's going to be about balance and pivot. And this little fucking torture device is going to help quite a bit with it. So, in pivot, we need balance. Without balance, you're going to fall on your face, you're going to pitch forward, you're going to fall back, it's going to be a bloody mess. And we can't have it now, can we? So then, what we need is a bit of core as we step on this, right between our arches, so we can feel like it's not quite balls of our feet, not quite heels, but right there in the arches. And we start to just kind of transfer our weight, little back to and fro, trying to sit on that right side, load on that right side. Golf is a throwing sport and it doesn't get enough recognition as being a throwing sport, but we need to get over here, get into this side as if we're going to launch, throw a football, 80 yards, 90-yard fastball, 90-mile-an-hour fastball. All right, that's enough of the Cockney. Anywho, we need to feel like we can transfer that weight. Get into that right side, load up that right hip, get onto that heel. Nobody throws a ball and gets over on their outside of the foot like this, right? But we see so many golfers sway. Let that sway go, let that core go, and then we're here. Pitching forward, reverse pivot, turns into a wreck. We let our arms run on us, and then we pull it down, yank it, gets steep, buried in the ground, thin it, flip it. Just a multitude of problems that we just don't need. We gotta work from the ground up. We gotta use the ground as our leverage. And as your core gets used to standing on this torture device, and believe me it is, I step on this thing every morning and every evening and perform probably anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 backswings. So first move is going to be core is engaged, shoulders are going to be back, and we got a firm core, lats, and obliques, hamstrings, everything up that connective chain from heels to neck. We want to feel like we're really active back there so that we can hold ourselves in balance. And the first move is just going to be that weight transfer back into that right side. If we watch Rory or Tiger, we'll see their front knee actually disappear as they push off, and their right knee will go forward a little bit as they transfer that weight. And even though Hogan writes in his book that the first move is with the hands, you can watch any video of Hogan swinging, anyone swinging, and you'll see that their first move is actually a weight transfer of about an inch, a half inch. Some people 2 inches, 3 inches. But we got to get that weight back. So the first move is always going to be, all right, get off your left side by either pushing or releasing the weight, onto your right side by either sinking into it or sitting on it, and feel like we're just engaged in that hamstring and in that quad. Then the next move is going to be turn. We don't want to let the hip go. We want to just use the upper body to turn. We're trying to refrain. Anthony Kim would tell you that if he was going back like this, he felt like his hips were actually going the other way because he's trying to retard that movement a little bit. And in that retardation, we start to build a coil, the stretch phase of the golf swing. So we want to feel like we get back here. We don't want our toes to dip forward. That's us pitching forward, losing balance. We don't want our heels falling back to on our heel. You want to find this happy little pace, a la Kevin Scheller, my coach, genius, love you, Kev. You want to find this happy little pace in the arch of your right foot, left foot if you're a lefty, obviously, where we are in that wedge, on that ankle, over that hip, and letting our chest pivot us back. So first move is getting into that arch and just being able to stand there, feeling that hamstring really quite engaged. Then we get here, and we can add a little bit of hinge if we'd like. A little bit of scoop hinge helps. And we can start to feel like we let that chest open up. Let that elbow internally rotate, feel external shoulder rotation, which is ridiculously difficult for most of us. The more you work on just that external rotation in your golf swing, the more you work that external rotation at the gym with some resistance bands, feel like we go from here to here, letting that shoulder open up, because all of us tend to get here and let it internally rotate on us. As we let it get up there, we'll let that club stay behind us, pivoted behind us, getting away from us where we would be when we're really going to throw something, rather than letting it internally rotate, crossing the path, running on us, getting steep, etc. So as you feel that next phase, we'll say it's 1, weight transfer. 2, some width and shoulder turn. 3, some hinge. Get that hinge out of the way. 4, we're gonna feel like we just let that external rotation happen in that shoulder, let the chest open up, elbow comes in a little bit as if we're throwing side arm, letting that elbow internally rotate via the shoulder's external rotation. Get here, and then we're just gonna finish it off with more thoracic turn, letting that shoulder turn into that right side pivot, pushing that thoracic rotation back on that side, really stretching that back here. If you don't feel anything stretching back here, you probably let that hip concave you over rotate, at which so you want to just feel like you pull it back a little bit and feel the stretch up in that oblique of that left side lead side. Get up here, let that elbow just keep working in, and just feeling like you can stand on that right side. Then we feel that let go at the top, that release we always talk about. Letting go of the arms and the hands and feeling like we can get into the CMC sit. That gets us into that external rotation of the right hip. So we let that happen. Then from here, I just kind of work little pumps, letting the elbow come in here, letting it really increase that let go of the front shoulder, letting that club shallow back. We talk so much about shallow, but really understanding what that means, honestly, to me, just feels like a let go of this internal shoulder, a flex in that back lat, that back delt, that oblique back there, feeling that lat kind of engage and letting go of that shoulder. Then we get really shallow, somewhere down here. Then we can just let this turn on and go crazy with the right hand and arm, feeling it really extend into the ball. So again, step 1, on the log, core engaged. You won't be able to stand on this log if you aren't already engaged in your core. If you're not engaged in your core, you stand on it, you're just gonna fall right back off of it. So getting used to feeling that core engagement as we stand on this, it's about the last thing I do before I let my golf swing start in reality. I'll get nice and set up, arms, feet, legs, hands, then I'll flex here, and then I'll transfer that weight in my core with my pelvic floor kind of pushing me down and back. Letting that get there, and I'm really trying to refrain in that movement, going from that weight transfer, boom, here, creating that width with some shoulder turn, letting a little bit of that hinge happen, and the scoopy left, finger coming up, and then my hands really feel like they're done. They're really quite done in the golf swing by that point. Then I'm letting that shoulder externally rotate by letting that elbow come in. And we get to that position up here where you just feel like that waiter holding a tray. Elbows looking down. We feel a lot of that rotation in the shoulder. We've created a lot of flexibility in that shoulder just by putting it up against the wall and creating stretch in there, letting that open up, getting your palm up and feeling that rotation in that humerus, and just letting that open up and creating as much flexibility in that shoulder as we can. A lot of us have an impingement in that shoulder from throwing sports. A lot of us have a severe lack of flexibility in the lats, just hanging from a chin-up bar. Stretching that out and rotating will create a lot of flexibility in that shoulder so that you can perform this very complex movement. Getting up here and letting that open, letting go of all this, will put you in that Tiger Woods, Adam Scott, beautiful position where we see the golf club just disappear behind the hands. We'll see as we come down and that shoulder opens up more, it lays down under plane instead of grabbing on it. Feeling that shoulder grab on it and getting steep all of a sudden. When the club goes back and then gets steep and pitches over, we'll see it just lay down and follow that path that we created actually going back. So again, feel that flex. Don't lose that flex. If you get here, you want to start again in this hamstring in that foot. Feel like you push off the ground in your pivot, push into that pivot and create more and more load in that right hip, glute, hamstring, and then we stretch it out with thoracic rotation, letting that shoulder just open up. It's no easy task, We get here and then we can pump down. Feel like we really are loading into that butt, pushing off of that little happy space in that arch a la, what is that, Bob Ross? It's a little happy place. And just a little happy brush stroke. Feel like we get into that, let that arm really rotate down. A great way to start your practice is just to feel like we are throwing, skipping that rock across the lake. Nothing stops in here. We don't grab in here. We just let it go, let it flow. And that's very similar movement to what's happening in this arm. Work that pivot. Create a lot of flexibility in there. Create a lot of flexibility in that shoulder, and you'll be able to really activate the stretch phase of chest, obliques, core, and then everything just comes back down and we're rotating through and going like crazy. Hope this is helpful. Hope it expands your knowledge of the swing a little bit, of what the pivot actually really truly is. We get on this log, your first move is a little slide right there, we're in big trouble. It's just gonna get worse. Right arm's gonna take over, lift, get steep. So we just engage in the ground a little bit more, create a better sense of balance and pivot so that can take care of everything. And this will make your golf swing remarkably more efficient. Righto, cheerio. I hope it was fucking helpful. Now bugger off, go practice, get a couple cuts in, long and straight.